Okay, hello everyone. It's really great to be here at Mainnet event, and I'm excited to talk about sharding. So just to kind of give you a more broader set, our vision is to remove all barriers to Web3. And the way we measure this is by onboarding 1 billion users, and we want to get there in 5 years. To really do that, you need something that is simple to use, that is secure, that is scalable to actually handle this 1 billion users, and it's sustainable so we can live in this world a few years after. Now, the reality is that it's all sharding, right? I think you've seen, there's Aptos and Solana here, there's Cosmos, there's Polkadot, there's Avalanche, there's Ethereum rollups. All of them are pretty much the same approach, which is how do we parallelize execution in such a way that we can actually scale and kind of allow more people to use this amazing technology. And kind of the reality is the only way to do it is by parallelizing. The only way to do this is by kind of scaling out either amount of compute you have on one machine or the number of machines that run things in parallel. And so things like pretty much rollups, Cosmos zones, parachains, subnets, and near shards are all about adding more compute that run things in parallel. And things like Solana and Aptos are about how do we kind of, within one machine, scale up and allow more things in parallel to run there. Now, there is kind of a trade-off there. The trade-off is that if you go to things like Cosmos, Polkadot, and Avalanche approach, where you have different layers, and rollups especially, different layers responsible for different kind of applications. Now, as a user, you need to understand where things are, right? Like if you think, oh, my app is on Optimism, but I have my transaction fees are on Arbitrum, do I need to bridge it? What's the time between these things? Is application launched there? Do I need to look it up? All of these things kind of add extra complexity. And it both adds latency to the whole system, and it's worse UX. And kind of the comparison here that's I think is very interesting is when PCs were kind of starting, we had Mac and PC in parallel, and we had Mac that was fully integrated, single kind of machine that was delivering one experience, and you had PCs. And PCs were actually evolving faster because different companies were doing parallel kind of research and development to try to innovate on different pieces of the stack. But at the end, Mac ended up building a better integrated experience, kind of delivering pretty much thing that probably most of us use right now. And so I think this is the same thing happening here. We have kind of more research and development happening in Cosmos and in rollups, but integrated experiences that try to parallelize behind the scenes and not exposing this to the user continue to be kind of outperforming these approaches. And so in general, sharding should be providing and hiding this complexity and providing the scalability. So in NEAR specifically, we went a little bit further. And instead of just kind of, oh, you have different subnets or different parachains, we actually say that every single contract or account is actually virtually a shard, virtually a chain, virtually a subnet, virtually a parachain, whatever you want to call it. And so with this, you can actually achieve ultimate scalability, right? Any single application can actually have as much capacity as any single blockchain can have, right, if it needs it. Now, running that kind of physically, right, imagine we have 1 million apps on NEAR. You would need 1 million shards, 100 million computers to run it, very inefficient. So we batch that. We group them together based on usage in such a way that it's actually, they fit in one shard, and they execute, and they are kind of delivers the performance and stability that's needed. And so the idea here is the kind of the hardest thing is how do these applications, how does this parachains, rollups, et cetera, communicate with each other? And this is where NEAR has been innovating to kind of deliver the fastest cross-shard, cross-contract communication, and then allow to grow the number of physical shards with the growth of the network. So think of it similar how you go, you use Google or you use Facebook. They don't really like say to you, well, sorry, we're busy. We have a million users already using the platform. They just continue scaling and adding more hardware behind to manage the capacity and give everyone exactly the same experience. So we've been kind of working on this for a while now. And we actually just today launching a phase 1 chunk-only producers, which pretty much scales up number of validators, spins up new validators which are producing different shards, and it's kind of moving us to the next phase of our kind of global sharding roadmap. Now, there are a few steps ahead of us, kind of finalizing the Nightshade itself. This is our kind of overall design name, which allows to truly remove kind of some of the bottlenecks around right now block producers validating all the shards, and kind of the final phase where things are allocated dynamically versus right now through governance. So kind of right now, what's happening is we have nodes that are running all of the shards, and so we're spinning up more nodes that will be running kind of each shard independently. More shards, better. Like you need kind of less expensive hardware that runs less things, and this is pretty much we're shipping this phase less than 2 years after our original mainnet launch. And so we kind of increasing capacity of the network while decreasing the hardware requirements of the network as well, of the validators. The kind of full Nightshade, right, is when we don't need any more block producers which are tracking all shards for security reasons, and now we can actually have kind of completely dynamic adding of the chunk-only producers as we need more shards. So switching gears a little bit, the sharding is kind of enables the overall flexibility, right? It allows us to kind of on-ramp massive amounts of users and massive amounts of applications, but it's not everything, right? At the end, if you're a developer, you want to build on an environment that is rich and that is actually flexible for you to hide as much blockchain as possible. And that's why kind of I'm talking about kind of sharding, but at the same time, the idea is as a developer, you don't need to think about it, right? You have lots of tools to just build your applications in different languages like Solidity, JavaScript, Rust. You can have a very flexible account model that does not kind of leave the user thinking about hashes, shards, or any of this. It's just Illia.near. There's lots of different keys that can be managed with different devices and parties. You have a number of kind of ways to onboard new users. And going beyond that, we're going to be launching meta transactions. So the applications and wallets can actually pay for your transaction fees. And so as a user, you will not need to think about transaction fees. We're going to be launching something I call remote accounts, which allows to use your account from other chains directly on Near with Near apps, where you don't kind of, as a user, need to think about Near even when you start to use the application. And that's, again, because our sharding design and applications actually don't really care as much if the other app or user is actually on the same kind of network or shard, because you can think of Ethereum and other chains as just another shard of kind of global Near space. And so kind of this original design allows us to continue expanding and kind of the space of the runtime that we deliver to developers. Now, just to kind of mention what are the things that this unlocks. So first of all, in past year, we had a 30x growth on accounts. This is pretty much like almost, I think, hitting 20 million accounts on chain. Pretty good growth on active developers, lots of new projects building the ecosystem, and really exciting to see kind of external funding of the projects in the ecosystem, over $300 million this year. And in general, this kind of, when I talk about sharding, it's not just about the technology, right? We actually believe in kind of parallelization across all of the spectrum, and so there's a lot of different companies and parties contributing to different aspects of the ecosystem, from infrastructure to regional hubs and funding nodes. And obviously, I mentioned like you can build in Solidity. You can also run kind of side chains as well, pretty much scaling in more. And you have a Rainbow Bridge, which is a trustless technology to connect with Ethereum and between all of these different interoperability solutions. Now, just to stop by, like for developers in the room, this is how easy it is to launch a JavaScript smart contract on Near with a front end. So it's just yarn deploy. That's on testnet now, deployed contract, and then yarn start to get your front end up. So this is like fully deployed front end with a backend that's written in JavaScript on testnet in 15 seconds from scratch. So this is what we truly want to have. Like, you don't need to think about the underlying infrastructure, which shard it ended up on, like what is the things happening behind the scene. You just build your smart contract, you build your logic, business logic, and just kind of get it in front of the users. I mentioned kind of how do we scale beyond the ecosystem itself, right? And so one of the ways we approach this is by actually having lots of different vertical funds and accelerators which are helping projects and entrepreneurs to build successful companies. And so kind of gaming, DeFi, creator economy, sustainability, entertainment are all of the different aspects where we see this technology being applied. And now we have like a dedicated team like Human Guild, Proximity, Move, MetaWeb that are actually helping developers and projects there. At the same time, to be truly global, you also need to be very local. And so we have kind of pretty early on started to set up local presences around the world, but now we have a very kind of formalized structure where we start regional hubs across the world that are truly delivering kind of local presence, business development, marketing, grants, product lab, and funding to people in that region, in their language, in their time zone, kind of within the network. And so that allowed to kind of continue scaling our ecosystem faster and, in a way, like shard our presence around the world. So one thing to mention is kind of what it enables, right, is applications like this. Applications like Sweatcoin, which has 120 million installs of their app, and they already registered 13 million accounts on chain, have launched a week ago. And they had a separate wallet app that got 2 million installs within a week. And it's pretty much #1 dApp Raider app right now, pretty much in 1 week, with 200,000 users have, like I think already more, staked their tokens and kind of interacting with the applications, right? And so this is an example of something where like they as developers, they did not need to think about infrastructure. They could just focus on building their experience and building their kind of smart contract to deploy, and then the infrastructure underneath need to handle and be able to scale to handle this. So I just invite everyone to kind of continue creating, right? At the end, the space we're trying to build is about creativity. It's about being able to build something that is connecting people, is truly going beyond just having companies and building community. So I invite everyone to create without limits. Thank you, and it's great to be here.